good morning, and welcome to episode 16 of Crypto Posse. Thank you very much. So, you know what? I really want to get down and get into it. But first, before we do, I want to reference the fact that we just had Father's Day, and I want to talk to the posse about Father's Day and see what you guys did. Hello to the posse.
Hey,
What's
how's it
good,
going?
guys?
Hello.
What'd you guys do for Father's Day? Anything fun or interesting? It was a great one.
I just went and saw my dad, which is about 20 minutes away. Spent Sunday with him, and it was great. And then just other than that, I kind of just hung around the house on Saturday. So not too exciting. But next week I'm going surfing for sure.
Well, I like the sounds of that one. How's Pops doing?
He's good. He's in his mid 80s and hanging in there and still getting around, and it's good to see.
Well, that's a good sign for you, mister. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, good. That's great to hear. What about the rest of my posse? What happened on Father's Day? Will, talk to the doctor.
I beat the heat and I went to the beach on Sunday. Saturday, the day before, we did a cool little barbecue in the backyard. We got a pool in the backyard. So just chilled with the family and turned the computer off just to get away.
Nice. I like the sounds of that. I could see a big glowing smile. Something must have worked for you. I mean, you're always smiling, but it looks like you had a good weekend. And that's great to hear. Mike, what about you, mister?
Same as I do almost every week for the last 3 weeks. I got some surfing in. There's been some waves on the weekend, so it's been good. And
Where'd you serve?
I surfed Leo Carrillo,
Oh,
and
nice. Oh, I heard it was pumping.
well, yeah, it was good. Yeah, there was some little bit crowded. I think the all the fathers were out there, trying to get a little something, and it's a pretty tight takeoff zone. It's all kind of like one spot right there at the rock, so it gets a little bit congested, but it was fun. I had a great time. Girlfriend on the beach. I didn't get to hang out with my boys, but
You got some fun ones. You get barreled. What did you do? Talk to me. You do some good turns.
I got a couple decent turns in. Yeah, my nephew was out there, and it was fun surfing with him. So yeah, it was a good day.
Awesome. Yeah, I had a good day too. It was really fun. I got to take a bike ride with the kids and my wife, and we just went and had a really just awesome bike ride. Uh, then we hooked up and went to dinner later because my granddaughter had to work all day. So then she joined us all for dinner. We went out to dinner up the road a little bit. And yeah, it was a good time. Sounds like all of us had a good Father's Day, which is a kind of a great thing for the posse. I think it's good for our spirits. And, let's just dive right into Crypto Posse number 16 to the subject matter, okay? And I think where we're going to start here is Mike's got something to say about SEC approves 2.3 billion Bitcoin fund.
The Trump Media Group filed an SEC filing for a $2.3 billion crypto fund. So, Trump's jumping in the game as far as, stepping up with a Bitcoin strategy, kind of following what MicroStrategy and MetaPlanet and some of these other big corporations are doing. So, we're bringing politics into the Bitcoin arena. Um, you know, Critics would call it corruption, and supporters would call it innovation. But either way, you've got Trump stepping up to the game and furthering what he initiated when he became president, saying that we're going to be the crypto nation of crypto capital of the world. So it's exciting, it's interesting for sure.
I like that thing you said about critics would call it, what did you say, corruption, and the people that are on the other side would consider it innovation. That's a really interesting kind of portal to look through because that is so true. It just seems like you either hear people bagging, just ragging and tagging, or you hear people just so pro, like, to sometimes I feel like both sides are a little blind because nothing is so black and white. It really isn't.
Either side of the coin you look at, corruption or innovation, either way, it's great for the crypto space. I mean, to have institutional investors coming in, these corporations kind of following the blueprint of MicroStrategy. and bolstering their Bitcoin holdings is great. You have MicroStrategy added to their holdings this week. Metaplanet added some more Bitcoin and now has over 10,000 Bitcoin. So it's definitely interesting. We've got all this political stuff going on in the Mid East, and has kind of left Bitcoin in a trading range of like testing the resistance at 1088, and testing the support at like in the 102 range. But yeah, it's we're caught in this you know trading range, and we'll have to see what happens here. Is it boom, or is it bust? We're gonna have to see.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It's a pretty unique time. And of course, pretty much saying that every week because at this time in our lives, it's always a unique time. I mean, just one week to the next, it's always something, right? But what does the posse think about stuff like this?
Super interesting. I mean, my take, it's like a revolver. Every week they're loading something into the media, and we're getting this massive reaction in the charts. And all I could say is just don't get distracted. Simply put, do not get distracted. We've talked about this many times. Do your research. I would not rely upon getting my news from any of the current sources and just leave it at that.
Just stay focused on your crypto. Don't get all dialed into whatever's going on politically. I mean, yeah, maybe we have, compassion if there's something, big stuff going on in the Middle East outside of the crypto universe. Maybe we have compassion, or we definitely have compassion as human beings that people are in the middle of all this and there's people dying. It's terrible. It's completely terrible.
1000%. And even outside of crypto, I mean, we're always talking about money, and I'm going to do the best I can to really keep politics out of it, even though that's like the driving force behind the curtain. And it reminds me of like the Wizard of Oz. You got like this character behind the curtains that's, putting on this show for people, and they're falling victim and trapped to it. But the key, really, outside of money, go hang out with your tribe, go hang out with your family, go build memories. That right there, to me, is more valuable currency than currency that we're using in and of itself to go buy materialistic things that more than likely we don't need. So just disconnect, man. Go hang out with your tribe.
I really agree with that sentiment. That's good stuff. Here we are in the crypto posse, but we're humans first, And in times like these, where you hear what we're hearing about what's going on in the Middle East, it's or even any, what's the big? I mean, they've been doing it in Ukraine for 2.5 years now, or however long. Don't quote me on the time. I know it's been a while. It's just. It's going on, people are dying, there's wars, and we're over here doing crypto posse. We just want to put it out there mainly that we're human beings first, and we really do care. And before these wars end up on our shore, which may well happen one day, where all of a sudden it just triggers a full-on global war, or some, third world war, whatever. It just feels like it's heated up for whatever reason. Maybe the war machine wants that, but we're here right now, I got to say, living under a pretty intense bubble. I mean, look at us, we're going to the beach, we're going surfing, we're riding our bikes, we're going to the gym, or, just doing a lot of fun stuff. We're doing okay considering, I mean, even though America's supposedly going through tough times, it's still a bowl of cherries compared to what I would think a good portion of the world deals with, It's basically about appreciation, giving light. So here we are trying to guide, ourselves. This is just Crypto Posse. We just talk amongst ourselves to make sense of whatever's up and have a chat about it, right? If people want to share and get involved, all good. But, we're just here feeling it. So I just, really like what you said, Will. And you too, Mike. And Jeff, I don't know if you had something you want to add to all that.
I really like what Will said. Sometimes you got to just take a break. It's so volatile trading now. Me personally, I wouldn't want to hold anything. And you could play it in between the support and the resistance. Like, Mike gave us the numbers. It's kind of what's happening. Last night, I wish, I would have shorted Bitcoin or Solana or Ethereum. But, I was asleep. It was kind of unexpected. So with, everything going on with Israel and Iran, it's just given that narrative. It kind of calms down. There's no bombing. Bitcoin goes up, and then gets a little more escalated, and then here we go. Things are coming down. So me personally, this isn't advice, but my personal trading, I would take my money. If I made some money, I would take it, get out. You can always re-enter because it's just volatile. And if that's stressing you out, do what Will said. Go hit the beach or whatever you have parked next to you. Go work out, spend time with the family.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, leading into your topic of the day, Jeff, crypto privacy is dying.
It sure is. When I got into crypto years ago, it was my option to invest privately or not. And I feel we're kind of slowly losing that battle.
And was that something that kind of attracted you to it as well? It wasn't just the idea that you could go independently sit at home and work, but there was something you enjoyed about the fact that it had a certain privacy to it.
Yeah, it did. It was intriguing to me. It was kind of new. It was on the cusp of something, not so much gray area, but just, kind of, I just saw it coming to fruition at some point. Like it's where things were going digitally. And it just sparked my interest. So, I've been trading back into 2016. I wasn't much of a trader back then. I'm still learning today. Many, many mistakes were made. But I just feel back then it was kind of cool because it was my option. Back Coinbase back then was pretty much the same. Well, it's not the same as it is now, but it's still reported, and they were trying to figure out the taxes. When there was KuCoin, which now asks for your ID, and I don't think they're KYC anymore to where they want more information. So I got out of that. But MetaMask, even now, they track your IP address, so that's your location. So we're kind of losing that private battle if we choose that's the battle we want to, get into. And basically, it would come to just, self custody of your assets on how you want to pay taxes. And some of us do both. Some of us might want to pay taxes here. We might want to have some money on a ledger if what hits the fan and we want to go to another country. So all those things intrigued me back in the day to get into trading.
But you feel like to some degree that what originally intrigued you, some of that is kind of fading, which would be the privacy part, the anonymity, the wild, wild west aspect of it, right? Where you just kind of could live by the seat of your pants a little bit and not be so tracked.
Yeah, we're losing that because there's tools that trace every wallet. And like I said, MetaMask was one, and then governments are actually battling against it, and they're looking as privacy coins or tools that we would use to keep private is a threat. And I've never even heard that until I just read that the other day. I was like, wow, I didn't even realize that.
From a governmental point of view, it's not hard for me to imagine why they would feel that way.
Yeah, and they used the specific word security threat, and I was like, okay, wow. So there was a company years ago, Tornado Cash, that basically was one of the first ones to keep things private. Well, they're in jail and the company's shut down.
Really?
Yeah, and I that was new information upon research. And then there was XMR was Monero. I don't know if you guys remember that. That was up there with like Stellar. I mean, it was in the top 10. And they're losing ground because no exchanges will list them. So they're pretty much, in my opinion, going to get wiped out.
So it's kind of the end of in a sense, an era, and the beginning, in a sense, not necessarily right now, but kind of there's a shift toward, they believe, the powers that be believe that that would be a threat. It's not hard for me to imagine why they would come up with that theory. But then to put everything as everything else has to be, documented, controlled, and, all database oriented so everything can be tracked, right?
Right. And the United States and the UK are pretty much leading the charge on that too. So they're the biggest ones,
Yeah,
which
thanks, guys.
which
I mean,
makes sense. But
yeah.
whatever, it's basically what's visible to the world is your income, your trading, and your wallet balance. And some of those we want to keep private.
Yeah, for reasons what we talk about also on the other side, which is, crypto burglar, crypto robbery,
Yeah,
crypto crime. Like, so that whole thing seems like a
because
can of worms.
yeah, because what that opens up and what we talked to previously, that's a good way to get hacked, scam, or targeted for your crypto.
Exactly. So that people can find out, what you got. I mean, that's just
Yeah.
insane. Like
So
they
I
don't
mean,
see that side of it. That's stupid.
yeah, and so like crypto was supposed to give us freedom, but now it's more like digital cash with a GPS tracker on it, when you look at it.
Yep. That's exactly
So
what it sounds like. What do you guys think about that?
I mean, I think it should really key into being a critical thinker and just kind of slowing down, really assessing the situation. Because I'm over here taking notes based upon what Jeff is sharing today, because he's 100% right. I mean, there are some wild conspiracy theories out there when it comes to like Bitcoin and who the creator is and the why. But at the end of the day, you have to really educate yourself. That's where we're at in this world. Educate yourself, research where you're learning from, because I really truly in my heart of heart believe that the real war that's been going on that no one really is talking about, it's called the information war. You got to be really wise and you need to discern the information that you're getting because that information will give you an emotional reaction to it. And that's the difference between emotional maturity and the opposite of that.
Got to check your info. People nowadays think they know what's up because they read a story on the internet, but things on the internet, unlike the library back in the day, that stuff had to be published and had to go through copyright and all kinds of stuff just to be published. So people were on the line more, where now you could read anything about anything. Just Google this and hear whatever, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's actually legit information.
Especially with AI. I mean, you're talking about machine learning, some of this AI tech in the background. Dude, it's scary because it knows people sometimes better than people know themselves. Why? Because it's picking up all the analytics on the back end, and people are just so their heads are in the clouds right now, listening to, this other war that's going on. But that leads back to the real war at hand. We are in an information war, and really, it's just again, not to repeat, but you got to really discern the information, tune in to people like us that are just shooting the shit about, what's happening around the world. And hopefully you'll pick up some gems from what we're sharing.
Hopefully you will, because gems are dropping, ladies and gentlemen. Crypto Posse. Thank you very much, Mike. What about you? Any interest in the crypto privacy is dying category?
If you look at traditional finance, somebody can't find out how much money you have in the bank. I mean, there's no way to really, you know, so that's why you're having people target these people that have these large, crypto holdings and because, as Jeff touched on, it's public information. So it's a little bit scary, but with regulation, that's it's good for the markets, but then it's bad for privacy and it's bad for the old wild wild west theory of crypto. So it's kind of a bittersweet, it's you know we all want regulation to be able to push crypto forward, but then you're losing your privacy. So it's definitely a touchy situation and it's interesting.
It definitely is. It sounds like there's pros and cons, like to everything. There's nothing's, like I said earlier, nothing's completely black and white. There's, the regulation part probably makes, certain stability, but at the same time, what you get as a result is a lack of privacy. Whereas when we had so much privacy, it was the total wild, wild west and people could rip you off in other ways. But I do think we're all concerned about the idea that, it's public. That just seems totally bizarre. I love that point you made, Mike. People don't know what you have in the bank. Why would they know? Yeah, why would they? What's this all about? I know it's such an awesome point. I get a visual when you said that. It's like, that's private information. I mean, who was it that thought that it was so wise that you should go the opposite way with crypto and make it public information? I think that's totally, I mean, it's one thing to get regulations in the mix, Yeah, certain regulations are probably wonderful. But when did that come to where they thought that was the right way to go? Like, couldn't we have regulation but also have privacy?
It's almost like these big institutions at this point, it's a game of flaunting what you got, right? It's where they're, I mean, maybe they didn't want it in the beginning, but now it's like, so and so bought this many Bitcoin and it's just publicized and and after what Mike said, that it kind of just came into my mind just thinking about it like that.
That would drive stock price too. If you look at some of these corporations that are, following Strategy's blueprint, for them to be vocal about their holdings, like Jeff is mentioning, if they're a publicly traded company, that could bolster their stock price. I mean, look what it's done to Strategy's just gone through the roof. I think that's why you see some of these other corporations following, Michael Saylor's blueprint, if you will, because look, it's just done remarkable things for their share price.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's like bragging, you know.
And the last thing I'm going to say is look at stable coins, look at Circle IPO. Look what they did on the stock market last week. I mean, I think was it $31 started, and I think it was 163. They had the single most gain in a day since ARC in 2021, I believe.
Okay, so we're now talking about stock price versus.
Stock, but stable coin is crypto.
I was going to ask you guys. You think that would be relative something to do on the show at some point where we actually just talk about crypto stocks? Like the crypto Nasdaq in a sense. Would that be interesting, or should I just be fired?
I mean, it's not a bad idea, being as the fact that in the background they are building out the infrastructure that we've been talking about. There will be a day, and it's going to happen sooner than later, where you will be able to exit your stock, call it Tesla, and you will be able to transition straight into Bitcoin all within the same platform. It's happening. It's called tokenization. Look it up, do your research. It's happening, people.
I love that.
Whether you like it or not,
Yeah. It's
it's
coming
here.
to a theater near you. Okay.
Yeah, they're already tokenizing real estate and yeah, I mean tokenizing gold. It's like Will said, it's all going to become one perpetual trading event that you can trade 24/7.
Coinbase just filed for that as well. I saw this morning Coinbase filed for crypto on the blockchain for the stock market. I didn't really read into it, but they're, trying to pave the way. And if you look at Robinhood, you can go from stock to crypto.
Wow. Okay. Well, maybe it is the right time for us to segue into the two things we've talked about in the past, which was one, our gladiator game. We wanted to, whatever, just some sort of game, right? Investing game. And then also maybe we do kind of have an element where it's like every week we could hear a little bit about stock prices or whatever outside of coins, just the stocks. It's interesting stuff. But I mean, segueing into the next, taking a left turn at the intersection, okay, is me saying Will's subject this week. What's next on the crypto chessboard, mister?
Man, it's getting a little hot in here, so I'm going to ask you to grab yourself a cold beverage.
Well, here we go.
Cheers. Again, don't get distracted, because at the end of the day, I'm just going to keep it really simple, because at this point it's been said too many times. I'm doing it. Don't get distracted. Listen to, some of these key points that Mike is sharing when it comes to these specific levels. Have what I call sometimes dry powder, liquidity on the sideline. You always want to be liquid, so that when an opportunity presents itself, you're already loaded and ready to take the necessary steps to take advantage of the situation. And when you look at it, and it's really cool to actually kind of sum this whole episode up, it's like we're on a chessboard, and you have all these pieces that we've talked about, from the stock market to the politics to news to having fun in the sun, all of it. But what are you doing with your pieces on your board? Because that's what matters most. because on the world stage is what I call it, and you have all these really, really good actors. I call our president, I love him or hate him. I said, I love him, my bad. I don't love him. But love him or hate him, he is simply put there as a main player on this chessboard to keep your to keep you in your emotions. Don't do that. Don't, when it comes to investing, you don't invest with your emotions. When I hit the buy or sell button, don't do it out of excitement or any other emotion. Just do it because you had a strategy already in place. Follow your strategy. That's it.
Nice stuff. I mean, hello, Vietnam. No, San Clemente or Murrieta or Thousand Oaks. Okay, here we are, Crypto Posse. Let's talk about that, Jeff or Mike. Any feedback on such an awesome subject Will brings today?
I think it's smart trading. I've done plenty of emotional trades and good and bad. And I think what he stated, when you have a plan, you try to stick to that plan. Maybe write some notes down for the week or how it's trading or whatever your long term is and stick to those as close as possible. And when you have a plan to, let's say, buy Bitcoin at a certain price, there's no emotion in that. That was your plan. So I think exactly what he's saying. Sometimes just write a few things down before you make that trade. Make sure you're following it, and I think that's great.
That sounds like really good advice as well. Mike, what about you, mister?
It's a tough market right now because, you're sitting at, it's fluctuating between, kind of a semi-top and, local bottom. So, I would, not investment advice, of course, but, like Will said, if you have capital, I'm sitting on most all my capital right now, but I've got a little bit of skin in the game because if it does break through and we get a little bit of breakout, I want to be able to participate in that a little bit. But if we do get a pullback, I want to be able to buy the dip. So, you know, I could always, if it dipped, I could always cost average in and try to balance out my positions, or if it breaks out, then I'm in the money. So it's a tough call right now of where the market's going to go, but that would be my strategy right now.
That sounds very practical in a lot of ways. I mean, it sounds like you're, covering yourself from both ends and not getting too emotional is a key ingredient of that because basically, based on data, you make decisions. You don't get all excited really one way or the other. I mean, I'm sure that's hard because there's tendency to get excited when things are good and, bummed out when they're not. But as far as the actual process of making the decisions about your investing, I think, basing it on research and data makes nothing but sense. I don't think too many people would argue with that. It's just hard to sometimes fight your own human nature.
And it's key too when we're talking about emotions, especially when it comes to investing or trading. You got to just trust your setup. And as you just shared, that's one of the hardest things, even for me to do. I just took a super solid trade, and I don't like talking about numbers, but just for the sake of sharing, I do know what I'm talking about. I was able to take a trade on XRP. It was a leveraged trade. I was able to close it at 140% gain within like 2 or 3 days. Like, you put enough dry powder or liquidity into that trade, and it could change your month. It could change your day. It could change your year. It could change your life. And it's throughout the process, you don't think oh man, and I've done this, move my stop loss. And then when I move my stop loss, what does the market do? They have AI built into the background, and this one specific AI's job, it's to go hunt stop losses. So then the price comes down, it takes me out of the trade, and then what does it do? It goes and hits my take profit almost every time. So I've learned just, hey, this is my setup. This is what I'm willing to risk. This is what I'm willing to, after looking at a chart, to see where my take profit is. So I know what my risk to my reward is going to be. And I have to just be okay with that. Because at the end of the day, learning as a trader, It's not about wins or losses. This is a game about percentages and percentage gains. And to tie it all back into this chessboard that we are all living on, one of the key pieces is going to move tomorrow. And I would highly recommend you tuning in to find out what they're going to be talking about. But it's the FOMC meeting, interest rates, and how is interest rates going to play into all this narrative in the Middle East. Boom, let's figure this out. Let's see what's going to happen. And man, I'm already pumped for next episode because we're going to be touching on that.
I like it. That's, we already know this week what we might be thinking about next week. That's some pretty interesting analyzation of our world we're living in and what we could do about it, which is to be informed at the end of the day. And hopefully you're getting informed at Crypto Posse as just one of your portals of information to kind of talk with what Will was talking about earlier, which is, don't get your source of information from one place. Get it from a bunch of places and then collect that data and make your own decision based on a well-rounded way you seek it out, right? And then, of course, use your own instinct and put the little AI in there. I mean, the more ways you can look, the more way you can try to make sense of it all, is what I think. But on closing comments, anyone have anything they want to say about where we're at this week and where we're going next week and what we got going on?
Will got into XRP early because you called me a few days ago when I was looking at the chart. I was like, well, didn't really move. Well, it sure moved in about 2 days, right? So you used it with leverage. And then Mike got a hold of me a few times yesterday to AI XRP. And like, should I sell? Should I sell? He did great too. And he did a spot buy. But I didn't want to tell him exactly what to do because I didn't know if he was taking profits or selling. And I made a point I would just take the money and just re-enter later. And it seemed like it worked out. And I think you bought back in again later in the day. And then if it dropped today, you just DCA it and then you're fine.
I actually sold it to 233.57 and I think it tapped out at like 233.89 or something. I sold my whole position and then it dropped back down to 220. I had a buy in because I knew the resistance was at 220, so I had a buy at 220 31 or something.
That was a great buy at the time. You hit the bottom and you were up in profit and while we're on the phone.
I just sold it real quick at 225 and just just scalped it real quick and it really didn't go up much more than that. So, I got lucky. I mean, I just playing that little scalping game and yeah, Will's definitely more technical and he's leverage trading, so he's got to be more precise and he's more knowledgeable, as far as the charts and stuff go. I'm just kind of playing in that intraday trading range and hoping that, my instincts are correct.
Well, it sounds like this one might have worked out for you, mister. Congratulations. A little bit of cashish. Thank you very much.
I made a little weekend money,
on Father's Day weekend too, to boot. So sounds cool. It sounds like you guys are clicking in on different ways you're approaching it. I feel like just even doing the shows helped all of us kind of, click into different ways to see things, just really just to be able to have this dialogue amongst us is so healthy and positive, and really appreciate you guys showing up to episode 16 of Crypto Posse. Thank you very much. You guys have a great week, and I'll see you next week.